You're listening to On Purpose with Aisha Cogborn. And guess what? I'm Aisha. I'm on a mission to help people connect their purpose and passion with their profession. My goal is to bring you conversations with regular people like you who are bold enough to pursue their dreams, along with the tools and resources to help you pursue your dreams too. Be sure to subscribe to the show so you don't miss an episode, and visit onpurposepodcast.com for links to the things we mention on the show. Now let's get started. Thanks for tuning in. Now, you may not know this about me, but once upon a time, I thought I wanted to be a news anchor. In fact, I have a degree in broadcast journalism, but I ended up going into corporate communications after college instead. But the interesting thing about it is that even though I didn't decide to go into news, I've been utilizing the skill set that I developed consistently over the past 20 years. I had a TV show working for Dow Chemical. Who does that? Who graduates with a degree in broadcast journalism, goes to work for a chemical company, and ends up with a TV show? That happened to me. It was hilarious. I'm just like, really, this is crazy. But one of the things that I talk about all the time is really living on purpose and being intentional and knowing what you want. And one of the things that I remember thinking to myself my senior year of college, when I finally had to admit to myself I didn't want to do news, is, well, it would be really cool if I could essentially be a reporter inside of a company that paid me really well. And that's what happened. And so, folks, the power of intention, the power of clarity, I'm telling you, it works, it works, it works. But I digress. So, yes, I've been able to use this skill set consistently. I've done broadcasts for companies, interviewing their leaders. Of course, you're listening to our podcast right now. But one of the things that I enjoy most, that I have probably focused 80% of my business on in the past 3 years, is helping others to effectively share their message on bigger platforms. And right now, we're operating in this era where you don't have to beg somebody to give you a microphone or give you a platform or give you an opportunity. And that wasn't the case 15 years ago. So that's really exciting. But it can also be a bit overwhelming because you're trying to figure out, okay, well, what platforms am I going to use? Am I going to live stream? Am I going to start a podcast? Do I want to be on other people's podcasts? And am I doing it right? Right. I say that in air quotes, if there's a right way to do it. So today we're going to unpack all of that stuff. And my guest today is my friend, Sarah R. Adams. And Sarah's an award-winning multimedia producer. She's a freelance reporter, a writer, educator with over 20 years of professional experience in broadcasting and higher ed. And in fact, we were in broadcast journalism school together, although I will let you off the hook and tell folks I am older than you by a few years. But you've done it all, Sarah. You know, you're an on-air personality, a host, a news reporter, an author, and now you're teaching. So welcome, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you. It's so nice to be here. I always kind of joke that I was married to my job for 10 plus years, and then my job and I had kids. And those are the college students that I teach how to then do the same thing. So it's been a really fun change from working in media for so long. I kind of had a different path, kind of like you did, Aisha. I started off wanting to be a news reporter, started off in radio. And in fact, I've been doing more radio than anything lately. So it was a little bit more of an effort to get camera ready today. But I ended up realizing that hard news wasn't for me. Yeah. I found myself kind of slipping into that mentality of hard news. And really, it was after kind of covering the aftermath or local reaction for some pretty big stories that I started to realize that it wasn't for me. The first story that I covered was kind of an accident. I was out doing an arts piece when I was an intern at a small station. And the news director called and said, "Hey, we need you to get out into the community and get local reaction. The president of the United States just admitted that he did, in fact, have an affair with an intern." so, so I led the 5 o'clock news. And a more serious note, I was doing local reaction for the CNN Student Bureau after 9/11, and doing local reaction from a college campus and that sort of thing. And it just made me realize that I wanted to make a difference by giving people a voice and allowing people to tell their stories. And now, again, I joke about it, but giving my students a voice to tell other people's stories. And I'm excited to be a part of this journey with you now, to work with entrepreneurs at the Platform for Purpose about telling their stories. And it's just been an exciting ride.
Yes. So what was it that made you want to get into media in the first place?
That is a great question. I always wanted to be an actress, and I loved writing stories, and I loved creating worlds that readers could step into. When I was 13, I wrote a novel, and every birthday of my friends that we all turned 13, I would have a new chapter ready. And so I loved this idea of writing and telling people stories and things like that. But really, it had never even occurred to me that going into media was even a possibility. I never felt like I had the right look or the right skills or anything like that. I think it really didn't happen that it was even a possibility until I was babysitting when I was 15. And I was telling stories to the kids I was babysitting for, and I was doing all the voices for all of the different characters in the story. And the mom came home, and she overheard me telling them the story. She came home early, and she was launching a kids radio show, and they wanted a younger voice. And so she had me come on at the local radio station and be one of the co-hosts. And I did that for a few years. And then the owner of the station actually caught the show and offered me a job. So I started my first on-air gig at 16.
Wow.
And then that's when I made the connection with a local TV station. I did an internship with them, and a lot of them were graduates of a university that was quite a ways away, but I heard good things about Central Michigan University. So that's how I ended up there. And as they say, the rest is history. But it never occurred to me that I could actually do it. It was really people instilling that confidence in me along the way that helped me get to where I am. And that's why it's such an honor to then now be able to do that for my students, coaching them through that process of, you can do this. You can do this. It's not out of reach. This is something you can do. And it really comes down to just being yourself.
Yeah. And I was a bit abrupt, but I should mention your career has come full circle, and that school far away that you and I both went to, Central Michigan University, is where you're now teaching multimedia writing, on-air performance, and media criticism.
Yep.
So all of the classes that were so pivotal for us, you're now teaching.
Yeah, which if I try not to stop and think about it too much, because if I do, I sort of go, whoa, how did that happen? When suddenly mentors that you and I had are colleagues and telling me, please don't call me Professor So-and-so. You can call me by my first name. And I'm like, I can't do that.
No, Rick Sykes, you will forever be Professor Sykes.
Exactly.
I don't care if I'm 70, you will be Professor Sykes. Yes.
But when I started working on my master's degree, I told him, I said, it's going to sound like I'm making this up, but it's absolutely true. I someday want to teach because you invested so much into me.
Yes.
And it's
did.
true. And he kind of looked at me like, oh, right, Sarah. And I'm like, no, really, it is absolutely true. And then I went on to, at my first job, I worked for another Rick who was also very instrumental in helping me kind of shape the broadcaster I would become, the professional I would become. Gave me some great advice. And I think really in an industry that is an industry that can kind of eat you up and spit you out and force you to change who you are, he kind of kept me grounded and helped me kind of get through that in one piece. And of course it was wonderful. I rather than doing news, I ended up working for a PBS station and was able to do documentaries and did stories for a news magazine and hosted shows and hosted live fundraisers, the infamous begging for bucks if you're a PBS viewer or NPR listener.
Yes. Oh, I hate Fund Drive.
But it was great practice for speaking without a script.
Yes.
But I also learned too that there were different types of being on camera for different situations. And again, Rick was someone who was my boss, but was also a mentor and who really taught me about this concept of just being yourself. And I was constantly trying to be like everyone else I was seeing on camera. And he kind of really continued to hit that point home, no matter if I was going to do an interview that I was really intimidated by or something that I was nervous, I didn't know enough about, he really would just kind of encourage me to always be myself. So I was very lucky. Not all reporters have that kind of encouragement behind the scenes. I was very, very lucky. And I still consider that station an alma mater of family. I still freelance for them as well. So that's been really fun.
Being yourself is something that a lot of people struggle with when that red light comes on. Whether you're recording a podcast, you're doing a Facebook Live, IG Live, whatever that is. I see people that I know in real life, and it's funny because it often goes the opposite way. You would think people would be, all right, maybe I'm more reserved and I try to be this big personality when the light comes on. But I actually see people doing the opposite. Like they're these very vibrant people and something happens and it's like all their personality pours out of their ears when they're being recorded. Why do you think it's so
funny?
hard?
We kind of go into this. We go into this fight or flight or freeze. And I think we are worried about doing it right. And I can say that honestly because I've been there. I've been there. And it has taken me a long time. And I still tell my students, do what I say, not as I do, because even to this day, I still have to remind myself that it's not about doing it right or looking like a news anchor or sounding like a podcast host or anything like that. It really is about bringing your best self to the table, to the conversation. And thinking of it as having a conversation where it's just you talking with an invisible audience. And really, I think the past year and a half, we've all become a little bit more accustomed to sitting in front of a screen and talking to an invisible audience. It's become kind of a way of life around the world because of COVID. And I think this has been an opportunity for people to explore how to be more comfortable in front of a camera, in front of a microphone, under terrible circumstances, under circumstances that are stressful and that sort of thing. But I think it has also forced us all, because we were working this way every day, we were going to school this way every day. It's forced us all to sort of shift into this mindset of, this is just what I do now. I talk to an invisible audience through a tiny little hole in my computer and a piece of glass, that kind of thing.
Now, you've even had to shift the way that you teach. You went from, and you teach very hands-on classes.
Yes.
And one of the questions that I'm getting from a lot of speakers now, and even hearing people who will say, hey, I love speaking in person. I love the energy that comes from being in the room with people, seeing their facial expressions, all of that. And if I'm doing this keynote over Zoom, even if I can see the people, they've got their cameras turned on, I don't feel that. Do you have any tips to still energizing yourself as you're communicating to the audience distantly this way?
Well, when I worked for that PBS station, I was traveling all the time. And when you're out on the road, and especially when you work for a PBS station, because there is this investment into the station, people donate money, people feel really connected to you. And so I would have random viewers coming up to me and introducing themselves. Sometimes my videographer and I, they would take us out to dinner. It was absolutely wonderful. And I met so many people that I really, really just liked. You ever meet a person that you just are like, oh, I really like them. They are fabulous. And so what I would do when I would come back to the station and we'd be live and it's just a few people in the studio, I would picture one of those people that I met out on the road. And I would pretend they were right on the other side of the camera. And even just thinking about them, I would find this big smile would spread across my face. And again, when you're talking to someone that you just really like, you just get a different glow about you. You just kind of go, "Aw." And so I would think about them and I would talk directly to them as if I was sitting across the table from them.
Yes.
And that really was kind of the strategy that I would use. And I tell my students too, and they say, well, we're not out on the road all the time. And I'm like, think of a grandmother or a significant other or your best friend or someone that you just ran into that just made you go, oh, what a nice person.
Yes.
Picture them and talk directly to them, not at them, to them. Because I think too, when we're in front of a camera, and I know a lot of college instructors and high school teachers and elementary school teachers, all of us in education, we had to shift from reading something in front of us to talking to people. And that's a little harder to do when you can't see the people. Yeah. So really thinking about, hey, I'm having a conversation with so-and-so. I'm not reading off of a script. I'm just talking. And if I stumble, it's fine. Yeah. It's fine because I think people are really drawn to authenticity.
Absolutely. That was probably the biggest lesson that I am still working to unlearn at times is we're trained anchors.
Yes.
And what that even looked like 20 years ago looks different than it does today. It's a little more relaxed, a little more informal today, but we were very buttoned up. We were we don't care about your thoughts and your opinions. Just deliver the news and smile and be cordial and, a little light rapport and banter and keep it moving. Deliver the news. Yeah. But now that isn't the expectation. We aren't looking for shiny, polished news anchors. We're looking for real people. And when we even think about the personalities, again, I'm saying for our listeners in air quotes, that we're drawn to if we're looking at somebody's YouTube channel or their online content, it's the people who are real people.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the people that go viral. Yes. People that aren't afraid to be a little outside of the box. Now, there are certain things you have to keep in mind. You have to make eye contact. You have to be sitting up straight. You have to breathe properly. You have to sort of downplay anything that could be a distraction. Yes. But it really comes down to being authentic and not being so afraid to mess up. I tell my students and I tell people that I coach, what's the worst that could happen if you mess up? And I'm like, is someone going to come and attack you? And they say, well, no. And I'm like, okay. And of course, my students say, oh, well, you're going to knock me down a grade. And I'm like, go into this as if grades didn't matter, as if I'm going to automatically give you all of the points. And they were like, oh, are you? And I'm like, no, you're missing the point. Go into it as if you have nothing to lose, because you don't. And just talk to people, share who you are, be silly, make mistakes. Again, not something I am perfect at myself.
Yeah.
I'm a recovering perfectionist, and I know you struggle with the same thing. Even just getting ready for this interview today, I was thinking over and over, okay, about this and this and this. And I thought, what I'm doing kind of goes against what I'm all about. Making sure I'm completely polished and everything. Because again, the polished news anchor, that's so yesterday. And really
unrelatable.
And again, I think COVID really showed us that we even prefer celebrities like that. We saw people doing live shows, celebrities doing things from their homes, and we loved it. We saw them unpolished, wearing sweatshirts and with their hair grown out because they couldn't go get a haircut or whatever. And we loved it.
No makeup.
Loved seeing the flaws. Yes, no makeup. We loved it. And I think again, it's given us permission to be ourselves in a way that no other event has.
Yeah.
Because really, after such a horrific thing, it really, I think, not only was it out of necessity, but I think it shifted a lot of people's perspectives about what's really important in life.
Absolutely. You mentioned at the top of our interview that you didn't see going into media, being on air, as even a possibility for you because you didn't feel like you had that right look.
Yeah, that's a tough one. And I know there are probably a lot of people that struggle. And I think now in this day and age, there's a lot more positivity. And I think, again, people are shifting their thoughts, but I wanted to have the perfect anchor hair and the perfect cheekbones. And this was before I really understood contouring, right?
Yeah, because the cheekbone, if you're listening, you can't see this, but the cheekbones are popping. I'm looking at them.
All contouring, my friend. And you've seen me in yoga pants hanging out on the deck. And I have naturally wavy kind of frizzy hair, and I had these big glasses, and I really felt like I kind of would jokingly call myself the ugly duckling and everything like that. And as I got older, you learn tips about makeup and things, especially as you do more and more on camera. But it's really just been in the past few years that I've really realized that's not what propelled me forward in media. And a lot of things I learned from you, Aisha, as not only someone that I'm working with, but as a friend encouraging me, like, it's okay to be you. It's okay to be you. And I've really come a long way since those days of thinking that was the only, how I looked was the only thing of value that I brought to the table when it came to being in front of a camera or a microphone.
Yeah.
You're getting like the raw, full story today.
Oh, that's what we do on this show. That's what we do. We do the real here. It's not none of that candy coated stuff. I'm
going to start tearing up. Do I get like a little tissue box? It's a thank you.
It's really funny, but if anybody listening has been to Startup Life Support, that's one of the things we tell people. When we used to meet in person, there was tissue on the table because this is real life. And when you're doing life together and you're trying to do big things with people who get it, and you can feel safe, and those emotions come out. So it's okay. You're in safe company. And I know our listeners, you're safe with them too. And they can't see your tears, but even if they did, they wouldn't care. They'd appreciate it.
Well, it was very humbling. And I think this was the universe's way of sort of reminding me. It was fall of 2019. I came to Arizona to do the Platform for Purpose boot camp, and I was going to be speaking all weekend. And in September of 2019, I fell and broke my ankle in 2 places. So here comes Aisha picking up Sarah at the airport. Sarah's in a wheelchair and recovering from surgery, can't walk. And it really was very eye-opening. I had this idea in my mind of coming to that event, this polished professional and everything. And that's a lot harder to do when you're trying to figure out, how to get around and how to get in and out of the shower and stuff like that. And it was very humbling, but I think it was also the warmth and the care that I was received with, not only with Aisha, but with all of the cohort members. That was incredible.
Yeah.
And again, this journey has been, I think, about unlearning all of the things I sort of had adopted in my mind as truth and getting really back to who I am.
I don't know if you realize how powerful that story really was, because I know that there is somebody listening right now who is thinking of a particular physical characteristic that they're dealing with. Whether it's a disability, whether it's something about their physical appearance that they're feeling discounts them from being seen as credible. And you've just basically debunked that, because I was in that room for 2 days while you taught from the front of the room in that wheelchair, and everybody loves Sarah. I was here in the studio a couple of days ago, and Pam Smith was here, and it was her first time ever recording a podcast, but she had been in the on-air boot camp. And she was a little nervous, and I saw her pulling on her tools that she'd learned from the boot camp. And she says, well, Sarah's not here to tell me it's going to be okay.
I need to message her. She's so sweet.
And she did wonderful. And once she started talking, she's like, that was so much fun. I can't believe I was nervous.
And she's one of those people now that if I'm recording something, I picture her on the other side of the microphone or the camera, because again, I think when you put yourself out there and you're real and you're vulnerable, other people are real and vulnerable right back.
Yes.
And getting to know people like her and others, this has been just one of the most incredible blessings of my life.
Yeah. And, you've been kind of teasing, talking about Platform for Purpose and the Platform for Purpose boot camp, on-air boot camp. And I know there are folks that are like, what is this Platform for Purpose thing? So let me just tell folks what that is. So
that was my segue for
you. One of the major things that I do, this is the bulk of my work, is really equipping people to share their message on bigger platforms so they can make a bigger impact. So this is not about stroking your ego. This is not about becoming just this Instagram celebrity for the sake of being a celebrity, but it is about people who know, I have a purpose, I have a calling, and I got to reach more people. And I might be scared to start this podcast or to go on air, to do this live stream, to be on someone else's platform. It may scare the heck out of you, but you know that what you're called to do is more important than your fear. Mm-hmm. And so what we do through Platform for Purpose Incubator is to help you really to get out of your own way. That's really what it boils down to. And as you were mentioning, Sarah, be yourself, but there are certain techniques that you can learn to make sure that you're not getting in your own way.
Yes.
How can we make sure you're not distracting from the message that people need to receive?
And even shifting your mindset, something that could be a distraction or something you think of as this weakness, think of it as a work on. That's what I always tell my students. They're work ons. And, I was reading an author recently who said perfection is an illusion. And it's really about the progress that we make. And, this whole thing of practice makes perfect, the author sort of shifted that to say, practice makes progress.
Yes.
And I loved that. I thought, okay, Because again, I think we're all perfectionists, but I think it's also important to note that we're harder on ourselves than anybody else.
Yes.
And it would break my heart to know that people were holding back from giving something truly life-changing to the world because they were letting their fear hold them captive.
Yeah. And there are people that need you. You are literally the answer to somebody's prayers. I am not saying that as a cliche because I see it happen every single week where there is somebody that we work with and they tell me how they've made some connection and the person tells them, oh my goodness, I needed you. Where did you come from? This is exactly what I didn't even know this is what I needed sometimes, in fact. But then you showed up. But the problem is if they're out there and they're struggling and they don't know you exist, then that means they continue to struggle with the issue that you're the solution to.
And it's hard to put yourself out there. I get that. It's hard to sort of have that confidence to say, someone needs what I have to offer. Someone needs to hear what I have to say. But I tell my students, I'm like, do it anyway.
Yep.
And I tell them, I'm like, if you have to kind of give yourself that boost of confidence, when you turn on the camera, slam your hand down on the table and say, listen, folks, I've got something to say. It just kind of gets you in that mindset. but it really is. You've got to push past it. And really, once you push past it, you'll see it's not that bad.
Exactly.
And it's not that scary. And again, the more you do it, like anything, the more you do it, the more relaxed you'll become, the more confident you'll become, the more at ease you'll become, and the more successful you'll become.
Exactly. You got to get your reps in.
Yeah.
And you never build that confidence if you don't get the reps in. You just stay stagnant in that same place. And I think about Pam again when she started doing a live stream on Facebook every Saturday. And when she started, she'll tell you this, so I'm not speaking out of turn. She was petrified. Look, she didn't know what direction to turn the camera in. She was shaking. Her voice was shaking. She was nervous, and she kept showing up consistently every single Saturday. And it didn't matter if there were 50 people watching, if there were 5 people watching. She showed up consistently every single week. And now you see her, and she looks like a pro. There are no nerves. It's second nature to her now. But we never get to that point if we don't just accept, yep, I'm scared, but I'm going to press record anyway.
And there's always another recording.
Yeah.
It's not the end all be all recording. No one recording is the end all be all. So when you do a recording, you do a podcast, you do a live stream, watch, take notes, write down what you observe, and then move on to the next thing. Because you can spend so much time beating yourself up, or you can keep showing up. I love that. Keep showing up.
Why is it that we hate to see ourselves and listen to ourselves so much?
I think that we all want to feel really good about who we are and how we look and how we come across. And I think I tell my students all the time, in our everyday lives, we don't act like we do when the camera's on. We're laughing with people. We don't sound monotone. We don't talk in a sing-songy voice or anything like that. We sound like normal people.
Yes.
But nerves gets the better of us. And we turn into someone that we're not. And I think we don't like to see ourselves because it's not us.
Yeah. Oh, good night. That's game changing. I never realized that.
It's like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Like, who is this person? and I think too, the camera magnifies little ticks that we have or whatever. But again, I see more and more people only do these things because they're nervous.
Right.
Like a student said, "Oh, I bobble my head all over. What's up with me? Blinking my eyes. I had this weird thing where I do this. I don't know why. I don't do that in normal life."
Yeah. I used to look up and look for the word, like it was on the ceiling. Like, there it is. There's my thought up there.
I think it was my obsession with cheekbones. I thought if I went like this, it looked like But but those aren't things we do in real life. That's something we do because we're trying to look or sound like a news anchor, like a podcast host, like an interviewer. We're trying to sound like insert name here.
Yeah.
And I tell my students, I don't want to turn you into mini Sarah Adamses.
Yeah.
You need to be you, because people can spot a phony a mile away.
Yes.
And they're going to kind of go, "Oh, no, thanks."
Mm-hmm.
But people are going to be drawn to authenticity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As we get ready to wind up, I want to talk about one more thing. The comparison trap.
Ooh. How much time do you have?
Oh, boy.
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. It is so hard to not compare yourself to others in daily life.
Yeah.
Right? Let alone in front of a camera or a microphone, because we think, well, that person has it all figured out, or I want that same sense of polish and things like that. But sometimes I'll watch different television shows or movies, and again, the characters that I'm drawn to and the characters that we remember don't act like everybody else.
Yeah.
They don't sound like everybody else. You think of the millions of character actors over the years that we've seen in everything, right? And they are not cookie cutter people. They're not cookie cutter actors and actresses.
Yes.
They're themselves, and they play these parts, and they use what makes them different to be remembered and to be successful. And I think as a society, we have to get away from comparing ourselves.
Yes.
It's going to be natural for us to compare. Sometimes it's going to be natural for us to wish, oh, I had this, or I looked this way, or I sounded this way. But again, it comes down to really figuring out who you are, embracing it.
Yes. And
then just going after what you want. And that's when the magic happens.
Yes. Oh, that's so good. That's so good. That's so good. That's so good. So you are in the book, our brand new book, On Purpose, 12 Strategies to Reclaim Your Power and Change Your Life. And we've got 2 sections in the book. Part 1 is your life and part 2 is your business. And you and Ita Udo Emma give us, a 1-2 punch. He talks about storytelling and really using that as a technique. And you talk about how to really show up and not only be yourself, but to be your best self. And you, in fact, close out the book. I don't even know if you realize that, but
I didn't realize.
Yeah, because see, I've got the preview copy in my hands. You don't even have the book yet. By the time
That's true,
folks hear this, the book will be out. But yes, you close out the book so powerfully. And I want to, couple things. Number 1, get the book. Folks, get the book. You want to hear from Sarah. You want to be able to put those things that we've talked about into practice. And I have a chapter in the book, too, that talks about building authentic confidence. So really those 3 all work together to help you to show up. And as Sarah said, be your best self. And at the end of every chapter, there are exercises, there are challenges, there are manifestos. There's something to help you to act on what you're learning or what is being reinforced in your life. So this is going to be a powerful tool for you. So go to book.platformforpurpose.com and you can get the book, or you can just go to Amazon. It's on Amazon too. You can get it there. But, we've talked about Platform for Purpose. We've talked about the boot camp that you have, which is an absolutely life-changing experience for folks. And so I want to tell you, depending on when you're watching this, you may be able to apply for Platform for Purpose Incubator. You may have to wait a year, but go to platformforpurpose.com, get on the waiting list if enrollment is not open, and make sure that you're looking forward to these opportunities to continue to refine yourself, because it's not even about us. I mean, that's really the thing. I don't want to become a better speaker or a better person on air because I want people to like me or to be impressed. No, I want to be able to deliver a message more effectively because I know what God put in me can help people. That's really what it's about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, Aisha, what you do is so powerful to kind of empower people to do just that. And I'm telling you, as a firsthand witness to it, folks, it is life-changing. It is absolutely life-changing. And I'm excited to be on this journey with you all.
Yes. Well, thank you for being a catalyst for that life change for people. So for those of you who have been through Platform for Purpose Incubator and gotten to experience Sarah and all of her students that have come through Central Michigan University and gone on to do wonderful things in wonderful places around the world, you all know. And if you come through Platform for Purpose Incubator, you'll get to know too. So thanks so much for our conversation today, Sarah.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
All right. And thanks to all of you for listening. And as always, hey, we're not doing this thing by accident. Make sure you are living on purpose. Thanks for listening to On Purpose with Aisha Cogborn. Be sure to subscribe to the show so you don't miss an episode. And I'd love it if you left a review to help other people find the show too. And don't forget, visit onpurposepodcast.com for links to the things we mentioned on the show. We'll see you next time.